was how to go about creating this shared universe and creating this sense of history. And so over time, the idea of a year-long storyline that ran through several titles was developed. The folks at Chapterhouse have always been very realistic. They know that it's very difficult to go up against major competitors, especially being a company that's only a couple of years old. So the creators behind the books knew that they couldn't expect fans to take a standalone miniseries and also pick up all of the solo titles, which would act as tie-ins. Rather, there will be no standalone miniseries. The entire story will be told across a line of several books. And the company also realized that it's still in the process of creating a whole line of titles and expecting to launch several titles all at once and make them year-long ongoings could be very difficult. This is a company that has to spend money on product and get the word out about said product, and certainly the folks who are at the head of Chapterhouse want to make sure this is a sustainable company and that this year-long story is going to work and then lead into something bigger in coming years. So in terms of structuring this story, here's how it worked. There were 6 books that were lined up to tell the story that would run for a year. And then Jason Liu's Pitiful Human Lizard would again be part of this storyline. The idea was to take this year-long story and break it down to 3 parts, or 3 waves. And so each wave would consist of 2 titles running for 4 issues. So in wave 1, 2 books would tell the first part of the story. After their 4th issue, both series would go on hiatus for the rest of the year, and then the story would be picked up in another 3 books. This time, 3 books because 2 are company-owned, and Pitiful Human Lizard would also be part of Wave 2. They would tell the next part of the story over 4 issues, then close down for the rest of the year, and then Wave 3 would be told in the final 2 books, which would run for 4 issues. Pretty smart. Sounds very much like what companies like Image and Dark Horse do, where their books don't run for a whole year, but they tell, they comprise a whole story arc and then shut down, while other books start up or come off of hiatus. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when the storyline is done next year, because there have been a couple of important developments within Chapterhouse that I'll be talking about at the end of this episode, which is at this point probably going to run for two parts, just to let you folks know. But I think at the outset, the way that Chapterhouse has come up with a plan to set up this universe, the way it's structured this year-long story, I think it's very viable. I think it's really sustainable. I've really been enjoying what I've read so far. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be talking about this year-long story, and I'll be giving a general overview of the 3 waves. Wave 1 is just wrapping up now. Wave 2 is just starting. So I won't have as much to say about Wave 3 at this point. General spoilers abound. I'm really trying to stick to general solicits. A lot of what I'll be saying is also my own personal speculation, where I think things are headed. So for things that may seem spoilerish, please keep in mind I don't work for Chapter House. This is me being a very excited, enthusiastic fan, just saying what I think is coming next. Okay, so with that said, Wave 1 is told across 2 books, and they're both new ongoings. There's Agents of Pact, and there's Freelance. Agents of Pact has been billed as Birds of Prey meets The X-Files meets Velvet. And in this first wave, we get an introduction to the meat of, or the impetus behind this year-long story. There is a coming alien invasion. In Wave 1, we see that there have been a series of alien breaches. Nothing definite has been seen yet, but there is physical evidence that something is coming. It's continuing to come. And so the nature of this intervention has to be investigated. And for the people at PACT, the Paranormal Activity Containment Team, this potential threat needs to be dealt with in an effective but hopefully peaceful manner. And so from the outset, we get confirmation that Manon Deschamps, the current director of PACT, was actually the first costumed hero to appear in the Chapterverse. We learned that by 1976, she was in costume, she was in action, well loved, at least by the people of Quebec. But something's happened in the ensuing decades. We get a sense of why Manon Deschamps stepped away from costume adventuring, but we don't know the whole story. We just get a sense that she's been very active, first in the general public and then later behind the scenes in dealing with paranormal activity in Canada. Now, a big challenge for Deschamps is the fact that Tom Evans has stepped away from the role of Captain Canuck. In that second arc of Captain Canuck, there were a number of revelations that shook Tom to the core and really led him to question what was going on within the Global Crisis Intervention Agency that he worked for, Equilibrium, which was run by his troubled brother, Michael Evans. And so having no Captain Canuck there at a time when there are these alien breaches isn't so great for Deschamps and PACT. And so it's up to Deschamps to put together a team of field agents who can go out and investigate these breaches and try to head off anything which is coming. And so her initial recruits are Redcoat, and Redcoat has a very personal reason for joining this team. There's something which she is hoping to get out of being part of the Agents of Pact, or as Deschamps refers to them, her Fleur de Conflit. There's also Yvette Arsenault, a.k.a. Quebec, sniper who has worked with Tom Evans for a long time, even before he became Captain Canuck. And with Tom having gone AWOL, so too has Quebec. But there's a really neat scene where Deschamps uses her position as Yvette's childhood idol to encourage Ms. Arsenault to put the Quebec uniform back on and join the team. And then there's a third agent, codenamed Crucible, and I won't tell you who she is. I don't want to spoil it for people who have been reading Chapter House comics, but she's a character who was introduced all the way back in the first arc of Captain Canuck, and she's undergone some very interesting character development, both emotionally and physically, over the course of Captain Canuck and Northgard. And so it's interesting to see her here now being elevated to a full field agent. We also get to see Northgard himself, Philip Wise. We don't see him in the armor, but he really wants to suit up. He's really stepping into the role, and he does want to help, but Deschamps tells him, no, I need to leave you in reserve. I need you back here at Pact. And that, of course, is set up for Phil's later appearances in Captain Canuck, and then his own title, which is part of Wave 3. Another challenge for Deschamps is the fact that Michael Evans is less than benevolent now. His brother acted as a sort of a check on his conscience, and now with Tom not there, Michael is getting increasingly aggressive. He's become so aggressive that he's actually aligned Equilibrium with the American group Halo, and they are the American equivalent of Pact. But whereas Pact makes its mission to investigate and seek peaceful reconciliation with paranormal beings, Halo takes a policy of shoot to kill first and ask questions later. So a really neat start to this year-long story going on in Agents of Pact. Really neat to see crossover happening already, seeing Philip Wise, references to Captain Canuck. We also get a mention of a xenobiologist, Tasha Kolchak, that is going to be important as I talk about freelance coming up. This is written by Colin Andrzejowski and Blake Northcott, with pencils and inks by Frederica Manfredi. Just really great story, both in terms of the writing and the art. Okay, so now looking at freelance, this is a story that initially takes place, I want to say, somewhere in Rio de Janeiro, but our heroes quickly have to come back to Canada as they learn about this growing alien threat. And we're introduced to the team of Lance Valiant, John Cabot, and Tasha Kolchak. So Kolchak was mentioned as having gone missing in Agents of Pact, and now here we're seeing what she's been up to. And these three are young, fearless explorers getting themselves into different scrapes along the way. Lance doesn't really know much about himself or where his powers came from. And neither do John or Tasha. Lance's powers, I'd say, are along the same lines as Captain Canuck's in that he has the enhanced speed, strength, endurance, stamina. His skin looks pretty well indestructible. He can't fly. He doesn't have any vision-based powers. But I like that we're seeing that Lance's powers are not tied in to Tom's powers. But it is going to be an interesting mystery that will unfold over the course of this series in terms of how exactly Lance came to be and why can't he remember how he came to be. Lance has a pretty strict code of ethics. He does not believe in killing anyone, even if they present a threat to the well-being of others. And that brings him into conflict with John. And Tasha appears to be something of a go-between between the two. She tries to help mediate their differences. But what brings them north is Tasha's communications with Dr. Cape from Pact. So we're seeing cross